Welcome to Fighting Workout, the 30th of May, 2020. I'm at a playground working with a small spinning carousel. The carousel is very strong, solid in the ground, metal base and pole with industrial strength cords for the kids to hold on to. I'm wearing general lightweight laborer's gloves, just to decrease my chances of cutting up my hands. There's no padded knuckle protection or anything like that. I'll be circling and doing a lot of accuracy strikes in between the metal pole and industrial cords. I'll also just generally circle the carousel and practice stuff. This whole 30th of May workout is basically a light workout. I consider it light because there are not an extreme rate of punches and kicks, nor an extreme amount of power, and also not extreme respiratory fatigue. This part 1 is a warm-up too. During this part 1, we'll discuss some popular questions and subjects many review and debate about. As a disclaimer, and to be fair, I am not recommending that you do any of these things, and I am not responsible for whatever you choose to do for whatever reason. Okay, on the subject of how hard I should train, how frequent should I train hard and train soft? I agree with those who consider there to be a bunch of negative results and consequences if I always train very hard. Very hard means all the usual definitions you've come to know, such as going full force, a practice that involves a lot of time at my max, a practice that involves me reaching a significant fatigue failure state, having very little left in the tank, and being significantly limited the following day or days after practice. Now, without a doubt, there are certain times when very hard to extreme training can be done, mixed in with other times of less extreme practice, which can emphasize a recuperation, among other things, like specialized training where extreme power and speed are not necessary. I agree with the understanding that if always training very hard to the point of not being able to go much more, that particular workout might not be that long, or at least long enough to work on a few things, so it could be specialized. And then, if it's followed up by off days of recuperation and no training, what I could end up with is a few hours training per week. Maybe it's a good dedicated hour of training 3 times per week, maybe also 1 hour on the weekend. So now I'm at 3 to 4 hours per 7 days. For a lot of busy folks, that's very reasonable in terms of skill and technique training. I don't think I'm considering a lot about the regular physical workout like push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, running, etc. But this is a good segue to the complication involved, because a lot of folks aren't going to be able to max out on Monday and then bring the same percent level ready to go all over again on Wednesday or Friday and Saturday. So, steadily, the quality of the 3 to 4 hours per week suffers. I agree with the understanding because I've been there and suffered the negative effects of extreme workouts. And yes, to be fair, I've benefited from them too. If someone is telling you they can combine their weight resistance training, running or cardio stuff, and also their fighting technique and skills training effectively with none of the categories suffering much, I'm not going to say they are wrong and lying, but instead, if they are accurate about what they claim, then it should be a case of them having a good balance, where one would not describe every one of their workouts as a massive blowout max to failure. I'm also cool with calling them special, unique, or experienced, and have worked their way up to that extreme level, which definitely happens to some folks. But for a lot of other folks, and those working toward those elite levels, if I'm going to have a significant running schedule combined with a significant kick striking schedule, I run a high risk of deadening my legs. But definitely I started limiting the quality of my kick training. And it wasn't always a simple case of running ruining the kicking, but rather, no matter what my body was telling me after throwing all those kicks, a knee tweak, a bad pivot causing sore groin, black and blue toes, I still had to run. And of course, I still wanted to kick too. So if I am extreme training, without a doubt I mix and match my extreme training with other training notably less extreme. Okay, next question. Or subject. Can I build up to an iron fist, iron palm, my hands, and how frequent should I practice for it? This can be a very delicate subject because it tends to involve a lot of extreme drills and stuff, and there certainly are misconceptions about what can actually be built up and improve when it comes to the hands. Plus, what's the context? Always in gloves, boxing gloves? Are we talking about bare knuckle striking? Let's start out realistically for on the street bare knuckle. If I had to quickly provide info, I'd start with two very relevant areas and aspects of the hands, or what is vital for the hands. So one of them would be the wrists. If I mess up my wrists, then no matter how strong my hands are, my punches and strikes will suffer. At the very least, I'll be in a hell of a lot of pain, often. And a hell of a lot of pain comes with a couple of other issues, which are the damaging happening at the wrist. So more than at the very least, I literally lose effective wrist structure and support, which results in decreased wrist function. My iron fist will crumble upon striking. Nerve and motor control damage will extend into my hand. Eventually, I will hardly be able to make a fist. So I must wisely improve my wrist function and ability. Generally speaking, less is more. It's a great golden rule for this subject. I don't rush. Just wisely, steadily improve my wrist function, while keeping in mind that lots of other things I do will be directly and indirectly working my wrists as well. The other relevant aspect, which can be a bit overlooked, is how soft the skin of the hands and the fists are, in relation to how easily the skin gets cut and torn apart. It's fair to not immediately think of this because it certainly is important to focus on the knuckles and identify the kinds of problems I may be having with the knuckles when striking. But if I enjoy the hardcore natural challenge of bare knuckle action of whatever kind, I might carefully, wisely improve my skin so that it gets cut less frequently from striking things. This isn't only from bare knuckle activities. If I had really soft skin, it could get cut even when they're in the gloves. Casual stuff, lightweight glove stuff, not a full wrist wrap stuff. But still, you know what I mean. I combined skin and knuckle improvement conditioning by placing them on different coarse surfaces, materials. By no means did I actually strike these surfaces much when I started out. And honestly, especially with knuckles, one of the things happening is being subjected to pain. So I might improve tolerance for the knuckle pain because it's not like there's a knuckle muscle I'm building up. However, there are things that can happen to the bones and ligaments and cartilage and stuff, and if done properly, wisely, I noticed benefits. If done unwisely, it could really mess up the hands bad. In my training with the wrists and hands, I did a very little extreme at a time. I built up over time. Some standards I did were knuckle and fingertip push-ups, especially stiff fingertips, not bent at the tips so that the pressure is on the pads of the fingertips. Another standard for my wrists and knuckles and skin was I had sessions of punching the heavy bag with no gloves or wraps. Other times I just used basic gloves like in this video. Another golden rule in regards to the hands, the fists, the wrists, is to keep the fist tight and solid.